My name is Callie Rivers. If you asked my family to describe me, they'd probably say, quiet, agreeable, or the one who keeps the peace. What they really meant was, easy to ignore. But silence doesn't mean stupidity, and kindness doesn't mean weakness. So when my grandparents passed and left their entire 1 million estate to Mize, just Mai knew exactly what would happen next. They didn't disappoint. At the will reading, my mother's jaw clenched, and my sister looked like someone had slapped her. A week later, they showed up at the house with smug little smiles and a fake title transfer. "The house is ours now," my sister said. "You're out by Friday." I just smiled and said, "You really think I didn't prepare for this?" 2 days later, they came back with movers and froze when they saw the county officer standing beside me, holding the legal folder. I wasn't surprised when they tried to erase me from my own story. They'd been doing it for years. Growing up, my mother made it clear who the shining star was. My older sister, Lauren, was everything I wasn't: louder, prettier, more ambitious, in all the conventional ways. She won spelling bees, school elections, and later, men with impressive bank accounts. At family dinners, she spoke the most, laughed the loudest, and somehow always took up the most space in every room. And me? I was sweet Callie. I read books in the corner, helped clean up, said thank you too often. My job wasn't to shine, it was to stay out of the way. That role followed me into adulthood like a shadow I couldn't shake. I worked hard, built a modest life, never caused drama, which made it easy for them to assume I'd just accept whatever scraps they left me. But there was one place I didn't feel like a background character: my grandparents' home. Grandma Evelyn and Grandpa Thomas were the only ones who truly saw me. When Lauren forgot birthdays, I remembered. When Mom didn't visit them for months, I stopped by every weekend with groceries and folding chairs for the porch. Grandpa would always say, "You don't make a lot of noise, Callie, but you carry the weight of this family." I used to laugh that off. Now I realize it wasn't a compliment, it was a warning. When they passed Grandma first, then Grandpa just a year later, I was devastated. But I also found something else tucked into the corner of Grandpa's desk drawer: a letter. It was handwritten, folded 3 times, and sealed with his old army pin. "If you're reading this, it means I've passed. I left the house and everything else to you, Callie. You earned it. You protected us when no one else would. Don't let anyone bully you out of what's yours." I cried reading that. Not just because of the gift, but because of the trust it meant. And because I already knew what was coming. Mom had never handled being left out of anything well. And Lauren? She saw property as status, inheritance as a competition. There was no way they'd let this stand. So I didn't tell anyone what the will said. I met with a lawyer that same week and began protecting the estate quietly. I didn't post about it, didn't mention it at Thanksgiving. I stayed exactly who they thought I was: passive, compliant, irrelevant. But behind the scenes, I was building something airtight. They thought I'd roll over. They had no idea I was getting ready to stand up. I didn't waste time. Within days of Grandpa's funeral, I was sitting in a quiet office across from a woman named Valerie Chengen, a state attorney recommended by a friend who said she specialized in fireproofing legacies. She looked over the will, nodded once, and said, "You've got something valuable. You'll need to protect it like they'll come for it, because they will." And I believed her. That same week, we began transferring everything: house deed, liquid assets, investment portfolios into an irrevocable trust. The trust wasn't just a name on paper, it became the legal identity that now owned every piece of the estate. I remained the trustee, but not the visible owner. From the outside, it would look like the house belonged to a quiet little holding company. The real power was buried under legal protections they'd never think to look for. We updated the utilities, insurance, and even the lawn care services under the trust's name. I opened a new P.O. box and redirected all estate mail there. Valerie drafted airtight bylaws for the trust, giving me exclusive authority, and included clauses that made fraudulent claims not just invalid but criminally actionable. It cost a few thousand in legal fees. Worth every penny. I knew Lauren and Mom would eventually come sniffing around. What I didn't know was when, and that was the part that gnawed at me. So I played the part. I showed up at family dinners with my usual polite smile. I asked about Lauren's new interior design consulting side hustle. I let Mom lecture me about doing something bigger with my life. All while the foundation of their fantasy was being legally buried 6 feet deep. Grandpa used to say, "Callie, the best moves are made in silence." I took that to heart. Every Sunday, I visited the house alone. I mowed the front yard, swept the porch, watered the hydrangeas. I didn't post photos. I didn't tell a soul. I let them believe the place was sitting empty, unguarded. That illusion worked better than I expected. A month passed, then 2. Then, one Wednesday morning, I got a text from Lauren. "Hey, can we chat about the house sometime soon? Just family stuff, nothing big." I didn't reply. 2 days later, Mom called. Left a voicemail saying how she hoped Grandpa hadn't made any rash decisions in his will, and that it wouldn't be fair if Lauren got nothing after everything she gave up for this family. I still didn't reply, because by then, it was too late for them. The trust was sealed, filed, enforced. They thought I was naive. What they didn't know was that I'd already built a fortress around the thing they were circling, like vultures. And the best part? They were about to walk straight into it, thinking it was theirs. It started with a smile. Of course it did. Lauren was always at her most dangerous when she smiled. That carefully crafted, head-tilt grin she used to get out of parking tickets, charm boyfriends, or slide around responsibility like a snake shedding its skin. I opened the front door one sunny Friday morning to find her and Mom standing side by side on the porch, grinning like they'd just won something. Mom was holding a manila folder. Lauren had oversized sunglasses on and a non-fat latte in hand. I didn't say anything at first, I just leaned against the doorframe. "Well," Lauren said brightly, "we figured it was time to have that chat." I raised an eyebrow. Mom stepped forward. Her tone breezy like this was some casual errand. "We've been speaking to a lawyer. Nothing formal, of course, just making sure everything's in order. And, well, your grandfather made a small oversight." My silence stretched between us like a tripwire. She continued, "He never updated the deed after your grandmother passed. Technically, that creates a legal gray area. But don't worry, your attorney helped us fix it." Lauren pulled out a folded piece of paper and waved it like it was a winning lottery ticket. "We had the house transferred to my name last week. It's already recorded. You'll need to be out by Friday, but no hard feelings, right? You've still got your apartment." I stared at the paper, then at them. The smug tilt of Lauren's chin. The way Mom clutched her purse like a weapon. The certainty in their eyes that I would fold. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. Not wide, not aggressive, just enough to make Lauren blink. "You really think I didn't prepare for this?" I asked softly. They exchanged a glance. Lauren scoffed. "Callie, come on, don't be difficult. This isn't personal, we're just doing what's right. It's not fair for you to hoard something that should belong to the whole family." Mom nodded, like a judge delivering a sentence. "Exactly. Your sister has more use for this house than you. She could turn it into something beautiful. You're just sitting on it." I said nothing, just leaned back and whispered, "Noted." Because this was it. The moment I'd seen coming for months. The ambush dressed in civility. The smiling theft. They turned and left, confident they'd won. I closed the door behind them, my hands calm, my breath steady. And then I called Valerie, my attorney. "They made their move," I said. "Friday." "Perfect," she replied. "I'll make the call." 2 days later, Friday came. And so did they again. Only this time, they didn't come alone. They brought a moving truck, a real one. With 2 hired men in matching polo shirts and clipboards, Lauren hopped out of the passenger seat in heels and full makeup, already pointing at which boxes to load. But they didn't make it to the porch. Because standing next to me at the top of the stairs was a man in a crisp navy suit, a badge clipped to his belt, and a thick legal folder under one arm. The county was about to speak. And this time, they were the ones who were going to listen. Friday afternoon arrived like a storm dressed in sunshine. From the living room window, I saw the moving truck pull into the driveway, its engine loud, like a declaration. Lauren stepped out first, high heels clicking against concrete. She had her hair tied in a sleek ponytail and was wearing a white blazer like she was about to sell the house, not steal it. My mother exited next, holding a clipboard and talking rapidly on the phone, probably with their so-called lawyer. Behind them, two movers climbed out and started unloading boxes labeled kitchen, fragile, and master bedroom. They came with full confidence. They were here to take what wasn't theirs. And yet, they stopped cold when they saw me. I was standing on the front porch, arms crossed, calm as stone, but I wasn't alone. Beside me was Mr. Abram West, a representative from the County Office of Property Records, dressed in a navy blue suit. A real badge hung from his belt. And under one arm, he carried the legal folder, the one with the trust name they'd never even heard of. Lauren's steps faltered. Mom squinted at the man, confusion flickering into something sharper. Fear. Mr. West stepped forward, flipping open the folder. He spoke in a clear, practiced voice. "Good afternoon, are you Lauren Whitaker?" Lauren blinked, caught off guard. "Yes. Who are you?" "Mr. West, County Office of Property Records. I'm here on behalf of the legal trustee of this property, the Willow Stone Family Trust." He gestured behind him, toward the house. "This estate, including the land and assets tied to it, has been owned by the trust since June of last year, with sole trusteeship assigned to Ms. Callie Rivers. Any attempt to transfer or claim title after that date is both invalid and subject to criminal review." Mom's mouth dropped open. Lauren, to her credit, tried to recover. "There must be a mistake," she said quickly. "The title was still under our grandfather's name. We checked. It wasn't updated." I spoke then, my voice, calm, controlled. "That's because it was never updated under my name. It was moved into a trust, legally, quietly, precisely to avoid this kind of situation." Mr. West nodded. "We've already flagged the document you attempted to file. The notary stamp used was fraudulent, the lawyer's credentials expired. The registry? Out of state and flagged for misuse. You submitted a false transfer request based on an outdated deed." One of the movers coughed. They were halfway up the driveway, holding boxes and now slowly backing away like they'd walked into a legal war zone. Lauren's face flushed bright red. "We didn't know. We thought it was open for inheritance." Mom snapped. "You manipulated him. Grandpa wasn't thinking clearly. This trust is probably forged." Mr. West didn't even blink. "Ma'am, we've already verified every document. What you've done is being reviewed by the district attorney's office for attempted property fraud and unlawful possession intent." Lauren took a step forward, panicked. "This is our family's house." "No," I said, and this time my voice didn't waver. "It was never yours. You just assumed I'd let you take it." There was a pause. Even the breeze felt heavy. Mr. West closed the folder. "If you or any hired agents attempt to enter the property again, law enforcement will be notified. And if this escalates, charges will be pursued." Mom stood still, lips parted. No words, just the dawning realization that the door had closed and they were on the wrong side of it. Lauren turned, jaw tight, and barked to the movers. "We're done here." They loaded the boxes back into the truck. No eye contact, no goodbyes. As the truck pulled away, I watched their silhouettes shrink in the rearview mirror. I didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was justice wrapped in foresight. And for the first time, I wasn't just reacting to their schemes. I was 2 steps ahead. They didn't call. They didn't apologize. They regrouped. 3 days after the confrontation on the porch, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox return address, a law firm I didn't recognize. I opened it carefully, half expecting something petty. But what I read still made my jaw clench. It was a formal legal notice, filed by my mother's attorney, alleging emotional distress and unlawful exclusion from rightful inheritance. She claimed that she and Lauren were morally entitled to a portion of the estate, that my actions had intentionally destabilized the family's legacy, and that she was owed compensation for years of unpaid support and maternal guidance. Attached to the letter was a 3-page list of reasonable reparations, including 200, zero in cash, joint ownership of the family home, a monthly allowance of 500 until further notice, immediate access to all family heirlooms stored inside the property. At the bottom of the last page, in bold letters, failure to respond within 10 business days will result in escalation to civil court. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just sat there, stunned by the audacity. The sheer gall of someone who had tried to rob mine broad daylight, with movers now turning around and acting like a victim, and demanding compensation? It was so twisted I almost admired the boldness. Almost. Instead, I picked up the phone and called Valerie, my attorney. "I have something for the file," I said, keeping my voice steady. By that evening, she had drafted a formal reply and cease and desist, but she didn't stop there. Valerie was sharp, and beneath that calm professionalism, she had the instincts of a bloodhound. She began digging deeper into the title transfer Lauren had tried to file, into the notary they'd claimed to use, into the firm that supposedly advised them. What she found made my stomach flip. Lauren had used a fake notary stamp, copied from an old PDF template. The lawyer they referenced had lost his license 2 years ago. The online title service they used was flagged in 3 states for facilitating real estate fraud. This wasn't just desperate. It was criminal. Valerie immediately contacted a fraud investigator at the county district attorney's office. Turns out, they were already looking into that very online registry. Lauren and Mom's case became part of a growing investigation. And suddenly, everything shifted. We weren't just defending anymore. We were preparing to go on offense. Valerie began compiling everything into a legal binder. The forged documents, photos from the moving day confrontation, screenshots of texts, copies of the trust filing, the demand letter and reparations list, security footage from the doorbell camera. Even the voicemail Mom had left weeks earlier, implying she knew the will had changed. It was meticulous, ruthless, clean. As she said on the phone that night, "They opened the legal door, Callie. We're just walking through it with all the lights on. And this time, we weren't just protecting the house. We were protecting truth and making it legally bulletproof. Because the next time they tried to twist the story, it wouldn't be a family squabble anymore. It would be evidence." I expected silence after the legal letter. But with people like my mother, silence is never surrender, it's simply the eye of the storm. A week after Valerie submitted the formal cease and desist, I started noticing odd messages from distant relatives. Things like, "Hey, just checking in, everything okay? I heard some things. Not sure what's going on, but hope you're all right." The tone wasn't concerned. It was loaded. Like they'd already heard a version of the story and were just politely waiting to see if I'd confess. And then came the message that made everything click. It was from my cousin, Riley, someone I hadn't spoken to in over 5 years. She messaged me on Facebook. "Your mom's been calling people, saying some really serious stuff about you and Grandpa. Thought you should know." My stomach dropped. We met for coffee the next day, and Riley came armed with screenshot texts, voicemails, and even a group chat with several cousins. My mother had been busy. She was telling anyone who'd listen that I'd manipulated Grandpa in his final year, that I'd coerced him into rewriting the will when his memory was failing, that I'd alienated the rest of the family, hid paperwork, and took advantage of a grieving old man. In short, she was painting me as a predator. A cold, calculating granddaughter who used legal tricks to steal the family legacy. Riley said plainly, "I don't believe her, neither do most of us. But she's making calls, she's not stopping." I felt sick. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It wasn't about money or trust documents or even pride. It was about control. My mother couldn't stand that I'd said no and meant it. That I'd closed a door she assumed I'd always leave open. So now, she was attacking something else, my reputation. And in a family like ours where perception mattered more than facts that could be lethal. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But that night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, lit by the glow of my laptop, and opened a blank document. At the top, I typed, "Family evidence file." I started attaching everything Valerie and I had, collected screenshots, audio, letters, legal filings, deed records, notarized statements. Then I wrote a short, calm, factual message. "Hi, I know there have been rumors. I'd like to offer the facts documents, not opinions. I'm not asking you to pick sides, but I believe the truth matters. After this, I won't be discussing it again." And I sent that file to 22 family members, everyone who'd ever been in Mom's orbit. The fallout came fast. Some messaged me privately with apologies. Others admitted they'd been unsure what to believe, but thanked me for the clarity. But 3 relatives stwo on Mom's side, one of Lauren's in-laws, doubled down. One even accused me of faking the trust, said it was just like Callie, to overreact and play the victim. That stung, but not as much as I'd feared. Because for every whisper that tried to dismantle me, I now had 5 louder voices saying, "Thank you for telling the truth." And from this point on, I wasn't going to hide behind defense anymore. Because when someone tries to smear you into silence, you don't run, you document, you respond, you outlast. The thing about consequences is they always come slower than you want, but faster than people expect. 2 weeks after I sent the family evidence packet, Lauren vanished from her company's website. At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence, but then a friend of mine, who works in compliance at a local real estate board, sent me a screenshot. "Hey, wasn't this your sister?" Attached was an internal ethics memo. Lauren had been reported for attempting fraudulent title transfer using outdated documents and a forged notary stamp. The firm launched an internal audit. Not only did they uncover inconsistencies in her claim to our grandparents' house, they found other, minor irregularities in her client records, enough to suspend her pending a state licensing review. In just under 48 hours, her license was frozen. She tried to call me. 9 missed calls in one day. No voicemail, no apology, just her name lighting up my screen like a warning flare. I didn't answer a single one. The next day, she posted a black square on Instagram. White text over it read, "Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who destroy you." Classic Lauren playing the victim with aesthetic flair. But the bigger shock came 3 days later. Valerie forwarded me a formal notice from the county district attorney's office. They were officially filing charges against Lauren for attempted property fraud and submission of falsified documents to a government agency. It wasn't a dramatic arrest, no sirens or headlines. Just a court date, a lawyer she could barely afford, and a long road of legal headaches ahead. The penalties wouldn't be life-shattering, probably probation, fines, some court-ordered education. But the record would follow her. And that spotless reputation she'd built, the young professional, the family favorite, the one who held everything together? Gone. As for my mother, she didn't retaliate this time. She didn't call. Didn't send another legal threat. Didn't even post one of her usual passive-aggressive Facebook rants about betrayal and selfish daughters. Instead, 2 months later, I received a letter not from her but from her new attorney. It was short, measured, almost hollow. "My client, Margaret Whitaker, is formally withdrawing all active legal claims related to the Rivers family trust and property at 31 Crescent Hill Lane. She respectfully requests no further direct contact." No apology, no explanation, just a quiet surrender dressed in formality. I sat on the porch with that letter for a long time, watching the wind move through the ivy Grandpa had planted decades ago. This house, this trust, was never just about money. It was about memory, about promises, about knowing when to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt just because they share your blood. They tried to take everything from me. What they didn't realize was, I'd already let go of them. And that was the thing they couldn't stand. Because when people like them lose their grip on you, they lose control over the story they've always told about who you are. And without that control, they go silent. It was a Thursday evening when I finally exhaled. The air was warm, tinged with cedar from the floorboards, and that faint, dusty lavender scent my grandmother always kept in the linen drawers. The windows were open. The old curtains swayed like they remembered softer decades. And, for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next attack. I walked barefoot down the hall slowly, reverently tracing the same route Grandpa used to take every morning. He would whistle Sinatra while shuffling toward the porch for coffee and the newspaper. I remember watching him from the stairwell, thinking he moved like someone who was at peace. Now, I understood what that felt like. I stood in the den, the heart of this home, and whispered. I kept it safe, just like I promised. No one answered, of course, but something in the stillness seemed to settle, a warmth beneath the silence. Because this wasn't just a house, it was the story of who I'd been forced to become. I hadn't wanted a war. I hadn't wanted courtroom letters or frozen licenses or family gossip tearing through bloodlines like wildfire. All I ever wanted was to protect what my grandparents entrusted to me, their legacy, their memory, their belief that I, quiet, invisible Callie, was worthy of something no one else even saw. Trust. I didn't win by out-shouting them. I won by staying still when it mattered, and moving only when it counted. In the end, Lauren lost her reputation. My mother lost her narrative. And me? I gained something they never expected. The strength to stop being their victim. They taught me that silence was weakness. But I learned that silence can be armor. That stillness can be strategy. That preparation is a kind of love, especially when it's done in the shadows, away from applause. I didn't become loud. I became unshakable. That night, I sat alone on the porch, the stars blinking above the sycamore trees Grandpa had planted before I was born. I drank tea. I breathed. I didn't flinch when a car passed. I didn't check my phone. I just sat there. Free.